millions of years ago. And then there was a group called Ebens 2. And Ebens 1 created, they're the ones that are like 3 feet tall, and they call the Greys. And supposedly they're the ones that come down and they do the lab work, so to speak, for whatever agenda that they have. Terry Lovelace was on the receiving end of that, and other of your guests have had to experience that, unfortunately. But they have zero emotions. They basically handle human beings like they're lab rats, and they do whatever they do. And there are supposedly with Terry, he saw people that basically never left that craft. So whatever happened to them remains to be seen. But I really wonder if this experiment, and this is just conjecture on my part, got to a point where they basically either weren't happy with the end result of what Homo sapiens sapiens became, or whatever reason, and what they're getting ready to do is maybe start a new experiment, and that is just strictly conjecture on my part. I have no way to confirm or deny that, but when I hear the stories of people like Terry Lovelace and other people that you've had on your show that have talked about the way that they have been treated or mistreated, with total disregard for their feelings, total disregard for their emotion, they're treated just like a lab rat. You stick your
hey, Tom,
comes out in here.
Hey, Tom,
they don't care.
I think
they're totally devoid of emotion.
Hey, Tom, we need to go for break. We'll be back in 2 minutes, okay? So hang on.
All right. Big time is passing by. They want it all, and they want it now. No need to wonder how or why. They decide to make a connection with the bearer of light from the other side. It's a self-centered new world reflection. It's a one-way ticket for a hell of a ride. They're making a deal. Whether down at the crossroads or Hollywood and Vine, they're making a deal. Gonna have it all for a moment in time. You may be a kingpin drug dealer who wants the competition out of the way. You may be an elite politician who wants total control and a power play. You may be an aspiring entertainer who wants to have their name in lights. You may be a 4-star general who wants the upper hand in a
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
And that is me. Well, we're talking about aliens, UFOs, abductions, government conspiracies, with Tom Davis tonight from Metatron Power and Light, and James Christbaum way out there in the dark, in his closet, because he's scared to come out because he's heard that aliens are on the loose. Anyway, Tom, how you doing?
I'm doing great. One thing I wanted to talk to you about briefly, this is one of the things that this guy told me was supposedly back on April 25th, 1964, this would be during Lyndon Johnson's presidency, there was a meeting with Ebens 1, and this was at the White Sands Proving Grounds in, I believe it's New Mexico. And not only were there Ebens there, but there were another group that the Ebens supposedly created called Archeloids. And when you look at the ancient Sumerian texts and you see those very large humanoid creatures with the large noses that are obviously, at least twice the size of their human friends, supposedly the Archeloids were created by Ebens to oversee human beings in ancient times. And what he told me was that there was a gene that they actually placed in Homo sapiens it was, I call it the worship gene, so that they would actually fall in line, so to speak, with what the archeloids told them to do.
Interesting. Well,
that's what
I really think, that, again, if we really think about how our civilization has originated, I'm not going to be talking religious here, but could you imagine the pyramids, the Sphinx, and, the Incas and the Mayas with their gold? Tells me that it didn't come natural. It didn't happen the way we were told in school how humanity started. I really think that, one, we've been rebooted a couple of times. Maybe we didn't cut the grave. So they eliminated us and they rebooted us, several times. Or maybe when we had visitors and we did whatever they wanted us to do, they terminated us. And then, another race of aliens came down and created another slave group. Because I just don't, everything we have been taught, from grade school to college just doesn't make sense when you really think about it.
When you look at the stone structures at places like Machu Picchu, when you look at the pyramids, when you look at the ancient sites where you can't take a razor blade or anything thinner than that and run it between those precisely placed boulders and stones that weigh how many metric tons each. And I remember as a kid being in grade school, and they said, "Oh yeah, well they put them on logs, and they rolled them from this quarry that was 40 miles away across the sand." And I'm going, "What? You really want me to believe that?" I mean, the number one, the only source that they had was a soft wood. It wouldn't have supported the stone that heavy. Number two, you try dragging something that heavy across the sand and watch what happens. You're not going to get very far.
It doesn't go very far at all.
Even as in grade school, I started questioning that.
Oh, come on. I've had people on, talking about how the pyramids were built, okay? Now, the rock quarry was roughly about, an arm measure distance, about 20 miles away. I've heard things, they put these 10-ton stones on these well, you know what? Trees were very rare to begin with there, let alone have to try to... You couldn't. It would... You know what? What happens when you walk in sand? You sink. Unless it's a hard-packed sand, but in the desert it's not hard-packed because of wind blowing and how thick it is. It would just sink. Well, then I had another guest come, and they dug a canal. And then they brought the stones on barges to where they built the pyramids. Yeah, 20-mile-long canal. Try to dig a canal in sand and put water in it and see from point A to point B if you can keep it flooded. It's like a giant sponge.
And Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny is going to make you, I, and James all win the lottery.
Oh, yeah. It depends on where you live. I think we need to move to North Carolina for that.
Yeah.
But, really, and you think about it, and the Sphinx is already proven as way older than the pyramids. So where did men come into this? I think we were visited numerous times. They probably insulted our planet with humanoids to be slaves to... When they came here to, mine for our precious elements of Earth, like gold and silver and stuff like that, which, is probably even going to be used in electronics in the future, let alone it's very, much used now. In fact, there's a big shortage in silver because virtually everything in electronics uses silver. And gold is ideal, but it's expensive.
Well, that's one of the reasons that the mainland Chinese, the East Indians, The Russians are buying up Golden Sachs, et cetera, are buying up as much silver as they possibly can. But there's a couple of reasons, in my opinion, for that. And one is, just like you said, it's very valuable. It's a great conductor, and you can use it in solar. And the other reason is because when this fiat global money system that we have goes the way of all things, money throughout history has been silver and wealth has been gold.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's face it. And why is gold worth a lot of money? Think about this. The Mayas and the Incas, okay? When the Spaniards came, right, and they started looting the gold, from the Indians because they knew gold was worth a lot. But why would these tribes think that gold was precious, and why did they have so much of it? Because they, in the past, had to dig and work for it for these aliens that came down and needed it. Otherwise, like I've said so many times on the show, they wouldn't be collecting gold. It could be brass. It could be copper. It could be anything. Pewter. Why was it gold? Because
I think when you look back on Zechariah Sitchin and what he wrote about the Anunnaki and Nibiru, etc., I think that, like you said, number one, I think that we have probably been reseeded several times, and number two, during one of those periods of time, humanoids probably were a slave race that were used exactly to do what you said they did. They were mining gold, they were digging diamonds, they were doing whatever. According to legend, however, one day in different parts of the world, the cerebral cortex of these Homo sapiens kicked in, and they went, wait a minute, what are we going to do this for these guys for? And they didn't want to play ball anymore, and supposedly, according to myth and legend, in various parts of the world, and it wasn't simultaneous, but it did happen, they revolted. So I think people can harken back to history and take a look at those myths and legends and realize that we've been around in one form or another for a very, very long time, and I think we've had different masters. Oh yeah, and I think we're going to have different masters again, because I really think we're getting close to being rebooted. I really do. Now I could be totally wrong. But I mean, with a magnetic field getting ready to flip, which it could happen any time at this point, the Earth changes, all this stuff is constantly speeding up more and more than what scientists, because you know what? They don't even know anymore. Because I tell you, it's crazy. Like we were talking about at the beginning of the show, Tom, they had in Antarctica temperature almost 70 degrees. It was that last week. It was like 69 point something. Almost 70 degrees in Antarctica. Crazy. Yeah, when you remember that it gets 60, 70 below zero down there, that's outrageously warm. Yeah, but not almost 70. I mean, you could go there. That day it was there. You could be out in t-shirts and shorts and just enjoying the scenery. It's crazy that last summer, Alaska and a part of Alaska never have been over 40 degrees, hit 90-something. You're trying to tell me that things aren't going on? Things are happening. And people, I get all these emails from people all the time saying, hey, this Earth changes is all fake. It's this propaganda. It's not happening. I don't know. I think what? You really have to sleep at the switch to think that, because, the climate change is real. It doesn't matter whether it's cyclic or whether it's man-made. It's here and it's now, and it is happening. And I think that those of us that want to survive are going to have to, come up with some very real means to think about what we're going to do about getting water, what we're going to do about growing food, et cetera, because I think of everything that you're saying is in fact upon us. and it's going to become more and more pronounced as time goes by.
Well, think about this,